Good morning, everybody. Hey, got my microphone fixed. Let's transition over. There we go. Things are looking good. Good morning. Welcome to the stream this morning. Um, I th- I debated a couple of things this morning. I debated going back to using resources for components. There's a couple of pieces missing. I think we might come back to that one after a couple of future PRs are available in Angular. Hey, Seldom Code, man, welcome to the stream. You are up early this morning, very early. Welcome to the stream, though. Very good to see you, man. Yeah. Um, so we're going back to the Sudoku stuff. Um, and as you can see, we're in the middle of an upgrade. Um, just getting our code up to date before we jump in. Um, so we need to migrate our schematics, and then we're good to go there. Um, Today's a good day. Um, uh, I'm typically pretty quiet about it, but yesterday celebrated my 48th birthday. So do the math. You can figure out how. Um, I was born the same year the Star Wars Episode 4 came out. In fact, when I was a baby, um, my mom took me. My mom and dad went to see Star Wars. So the very first movie I saw when I was a child was Star Wars. That came out the same year I was born. Um, Granted, I was so young that I slept through all of it, but maybe that's where my love of Star Wars came from. Um, anyway, we're in the middle of finishing our upgrade. Um, And once that's done, we'll jump into the code. I feel old. I'm 50 in November. Dude, you're not that old. Sure, when I was in high school, 2 years made a difference. Now that I've got almost a half a decade under my belt, or half a decade, half a century under my belt, uh, the mind starts to go as you get older. So I've got almost half a century under my belt. 2 years doesn't seem like that much of a difference. Um, anyway, it's good to know that I'm in good company with you, Seldom. Um, anyway, let's commit all of this. So we upgraded NX and Angular. What? GPG failed to sign the data. Hmm. I just updated GPG before the um, git commit. Um, oh, are we using? Uh, so we upgraded NX and Angular. Oh, Well, this is fun. We get to figure out this issue. So before this stream, um, I used Uniget, um, which is a nice way to run package updates, but it had a GPG update. Um, so let's see where which GPG, where GPG. Can't find it on the path. Great. So now we're gonna have to go take a look for it. Um, fun, 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 fun. Let's go here. Let's go take a look at program files. And where did it say it was going to be? New PG in. Yep, that's not there. That's all empty. Did it move it to here? Oh, look at that. There it is right there. So, how do I tell Git where new GPG is? Um, change location of GPG for Git. Okay. So we use the git config and we can tell it where it moved to. So go ahead and up my file explorer. Go here, here, and program files in copies path. Now I should be able to go back and run this same command. So git config global gpg.program and paste this in. So git config global gpg.program and then paste this and got double quotes. So now let's go back here and just see if this works. No. Okay. Does it work here? Let's see. Insert. So upgrade NX and Angular. Um, That is taking a good long while. Um, so while we wait for that, let's go here. Um, maybe it's my external tools. Configure commit signing. There we go. Now we can browse for this. Go here, here. New PG in epg.exe, right? There's a git error, probably. That one worked. Let's try. Oh, look, let's just, it looks like we're good here. We've got that commit in place. It does take a long time for that GPG. Oh no, why are there so many insertions and deletions here? That, oh, it's the PNPM lock. Never mind. Never mind. Okay, so I think we've got everything solved. We'll give it a shot here. It would have been nice to know that GPG changed locations after that upgrade. That would have been a nice thing to know. Um, anyway, so let's take a look at what we've got left to migrate. So we just did Angular. We just did Angular. We just did NX. Um, sorry, that threw me for a little bit. So let's grab the Angular ESLint. This might have migrations, so we'll run this one through the migrations. Um, TypeScript. The rest of this stuff is all pretty normal. Um, yeah. So if we run this command again, does it show? Yeah, it does show the Angular ESLint stuff. Um, so npm exec nx migrate, and we're gonna do at Angular /ESLint. Yeah, we can start with template parser. It doesn't matter. We're going to do them all at the same time. We aren't going to do the install until after it's done. That should be fine. Things are a bit slow right now. I've got something. Something chewing up a ton of processor. I don't know what it is, but well, I do, but I don't know why. So let's next grab this one. Come on. There we go. So, and actually, this is the nice thing about Warp also is npm exec nx migrate. Did I grab? No, I grabbed plugin template. Why does it want to do a filter on that? And the last one is the actual plugin. So grab that one, we'll run the install, and then we're just going to use NCU to upgrade all the rest. And at that point, we'll be in a good spot. So npm exec nx migrate, paste that one in. There we go. Gotta pick up my daughter at the airport. So just checking on. Okay. Sounds good. I'm debating making like a silly sign, like um, "It's okay, Zoe, we forgive you," or something like that. Or when we pick her up at the airport, so we can hold it for her and embarrass her in front of her friends. We'll see if my wife allows that. Um, as a father, it's my sworn sacred duty to embarrass my daughters like that. Okay. So we upgraded Angular ESLint. See if it works now. GPG program not found. Are you kidding? Let's try again. Commit signing. Browse. gpg.exe. There we go. Unable to open git config. You know what? Let's just try restarting this. If we're in a bad state. So upgrade Angular ESLint. Commit this. Okay. So it probably couldn't change. Git was probably like, "Hey, you've already changed this." So all right. I was ready to get frustrated, but the nice thing is we can still use the CLI, right? We were able to fix the CLI. Um, anyway, I wanted to make sure that that one worked. So here we go. So we've got some storybook stuff that are patches. That's fine. We'll upgrade these. SWC core, our node types, prettier storybook, ESLint, Baker TypeScript, ESLint. Yeah, those are all good. Cypress, that's fine. This is all fine. So we'll add a -i to it. Normally I would do just a -u, but we want to grab these majors and the version 0 change. And we're just going to upgrade all of this. And yeah, we're going to run pnpm install after it's done. And we're just going to say we upgraded our dependencies. At this point, I do want to see what version of Node we're pinned to. So we're using Volta. Oh, Gotta We may need to remove the frozen lock file, but it looks like we're okay. Just go take a look at our package JSON that we just installed. So we got our storybook, Cypress, ESLint, more storybook. Yeah, it looks like everything upgraded as expected. I'm not sure what happened with the lock file here. Um, it could just be so Windows has been doing some frustrating things lately. Um, 24H2 build of Windows has just been particularly buggy, um, which is frustrating. Like I've had audio drivers just crash things, right? So um, like on stream a few weeks ago, um, I had my Streamlabs just crash, and I had no idea what was going on, right? As I was going back through my Windows logs trying to figure it out, turns out that my audio driver for my headphones crashed Windows. Okay. Um, and then that brought down the stream and it just made a mess, right? Um, and it's known bugs in 24H2, and like they'll squash some and more pop up. It's just been a buggy build and a little bit frustrating. Um, and I'm usually a big Windows fan, but really debating um, potentially looking at like doing a Linux development environment for streaming, which is crazy. Um, and if I do that, I haven't decided if I'm going to go with something like a Docker environment, um, or you know, um, like WSL2, or I don't know. I haven't decided yet um, what environment I might use. Um, I I don't know. There's a lot of things to figure out here. May take my old laptop and convert it to a Linux environment, and then run its output into this laptop that I'll stream from. So I won't be doing my coding here, but there's just a lot of stuff, a lot of unknowns in doing that, and then take a bit of work. So I'm a recovering Windows user after years of Windows-based dev, now Mac only for me. Yeah, my frustration with Mac, um, well, I have a bunch of frustrations with Mac, but my biggest frustration, um, okay, Debian, okay, the like the home key and the end key and stuff like that don't behave the way I expect them to behave. That's my biggest frustration when I'm coding. Like all the muscle memory I've built up in working with Linux and Unix and Windows over the years, they all behave the same way. Um, But as soon as I get on a Mac, all of my shortcuts and stuff and muscle memory and keys and all of that are way different. Um, and so I don't know if you guys heard my wife in the background. My wife is my wife is a graphic designer. Um, so in the house, we've got Mac and Windows and Linux and stuff going on, right? Um, and my wife, she loves her Mac, and like she is way better with Mac than I will ever be. And so in the background, as I'm talking about my frustrations with Mac, she's like, "Hey, you don't bash on my Mac." So, um, right, I'm the only Android user in a house of of Apple phones. And so like my daughter is like, Your texts are the wrong color," and stuff like that. It's hilarious. But um, yeah, we definitely have plenty of Apple products in the house. Upgraded dependencies. It's funny that I feel like I have to say something about that, right? Like I'm commenting about my wife, and um, like she is really good at Mac, and like we get into these debates, right? She loves Safari, um, but she'll come across websites where Safari just doesn't work, and um, so I'm like, well, you shouldn't be using Safari. And she's like, shut up, I love Safari, right? Like, and to her point, perfectly fair, right, to say that she loves Safari. To my point, as a web developer, absolutely despise Safari, right? But it shouldn't be like websites shouldn't be dictating browsers, right? Like your experience should work across all browsers. It may be degraded for some browsers that are worse than others, Safari, right? But um, it forms just shouldn't not work or not submit, right? And things like that. So she has a valid point, right? Like she wants to work how she wants to work, and that's perfectly fair. Um, and if sites don't work, that's not her fault that that they couldn't get their coding right. Command control, easy fix. Just don't ever go back to Windows. They don't better. Oh, Chris, you're sorry, seldom. You're absolutely right. But yeah, the hours I spent fixing IE6 ish. Oh, dude, we don't talk about the before times. Okay, IE6 is a blight on humanity. Uh, for those of you who are young enough to have never experienced IE6, be happy. Be content in your ignorance, man. Ignorance is bliss in this state. Um, like Chrome and Firefox were leaps and bounds ahead of um, IE6, but you would still have organizations like banks and stuff that had written like these plugins that only worked in IE6 because IE6. Um, this was back in the days when Microsoft was in their embrace, extend, extinguish phase, right? Where they would embrace a technology, then they would subtly extend that technology so that only their browsers offered those extensions, um, and then use that technology, right, to extinguish other open source versions of that technology. It was horrible practice. But it was hugely successful because there were people still locked into IE6 when IE8 and right like uh IE9 and 10 and 11. Luckily at 11 we managed to kill that beast, right? Um, and we've got Edge. Edge seems to be a fairly competent browser, but you know, the problem with us old devs is we're like elephants and we've got these memories of pain that we just never forget. So it doesn't matter how good Edge gets, it will be very rare that I will ever use Edge. In fact, right, I'm debating removing um, this wallpaper stuff that I use. Um, and the biggest reason that I'm debating doing it is Microsoft's got this dirty practice with this wallpaper, right? This is a Microsoft wallpaper. They've got this dirty practice of setting Bing as my default search engine and then changing my default browser to Edge. And it infuriates me. I love the application for the wallpaper, and I think that's why they do it, right? Because tons of people love it. Um, But oh, what a dirty thing to do to somebody, right? Like, hey, we're going to change your browser and your default search engine, right? It's along the lines of IE6 and things like that. um, and it's a known issue. I've got a few tools that go about cleaning up the mess that this stuff creates. Um, but it's like this arms race where these tools figure out how to block Microsoft from doing it, and then Microsoft changes something and does it again. So it's just it's a frustrating cycle. Um, which is a good argument for open source OSs, right? Um, Linux, you can always find a distro of Linux that's going to do what you want to do, right? So anyway, we upgraded all of our stuff. We run NCU. Um, Everything should be upgraded. Um, and so one last, I want to Volta list all, right? So I want to see what versions of Volta that we're on. So we are running node 22.9. It looks like we could pin to 22.12. Um, so our PNPM is the latest version. Um, NPM check updates is also the latest version, right? So let's take a look. Like before I pin, I know this pin works, but I do want to teach some good habits, right? So if we go to angular.dev, right, um, and we look up the version compatibility, and I visit this page quite a bit, but we can see that anything greater than 18.19.1, anything greater than 20.11.1, and anything greater than version 22, um, right? And then our RxJS and um, our TypeScript are all, you know, where we expect them to be. 5.8 is awesome. Um, so what we can do is we can just go Volta in node at 22. And that should upgrade our node to use, oh, we're going to use 22.14. Um, so now if we run our node dash dash version, for this project, we're now on node 22.14. And if we go take a look, I don't think that, oh, it did change stuff. So in our package JSON, you can see that we were pinned to 22.9. We just told it, hey, give us the latest version of 22. It grabbed 22.14. Like things like this are healthy to check on every once in a while. We'll go ahead and stage this. We'll just say we pinned node at 22.14, right? Commit those changes and push those. And now we're in a place where I want to see, so we're going to exec nx run many, and we're going to lint, we're going to test. We can run all of them. We'll do component test and build. I expect my component test to fail. Um, And that's fine. If component tests fail, that's okay. We haven't done much to fix component tests because we've been working so hard at breaking kind of the backbone of our application, right? We'll come back and we'll fix our component tests once we get X state in place. But the linting and the unit testing and the actual build itself, um, those should all work well. One thing I probably shouldn't have run the build. Um, Probably shouldn't have run the build because I do want to take a look at the build and just see like what our bundles look like. So after we run this, we'll run our our build and see what our bundles look like. I don't expect anything to break here. Um, if anything breaks, we'll fix it. And this is why, like, I've said this a few times on stream, but um, I don't recommend the process that I follow on stream where you immediately commit. You should be testing before you commit package upgrades. Um, and you know, we're as streamers, part of our job is to provide entertainment, right? If I'm boring and I'm not entertaining, nobody's going to watch me. And so we all, as content creators, we all do a bit of content farming, right? One of the things I do for content farming is I'm a bit reckless in how I do upgrades and stuff, right? Um, like you could see the GPG stuff. I did it right before the stream and it broke. But the reason I do it is partially content farming, right? People like to watch streamers struggle. But the other thing is, how do we track down the issue, right? How do we fix the issue? What happened, right? And those are very, very good skills for you to have as a developer. Um, and so I like to show, hey, I may have been doing this for a long time, but I still struggle, right? Everybody has their struggles. But anyway, let's PNPM exec NX, um, and we'll do a run many on our build target. And we could run a stats JSON. And you know what? Once we're done with this X state, I would love to run a stats JSON. Oh, we read it from the cache. Oh, come on. Um, npm exec nx build. Because Angular is our default project here. Or the Sudoku. Okay, there we go. So now we're getting the stats that we expect. So here's the thing that we've got going on. Um, we've got a whole bunch of chunks that are served in our initial bundle, right? So we're serving 308K, and we only have like 300 bytes that are lazy loaded, right? Um, we could do better. We could definitely do better. There's stuff in here, these chunks that probably don't need to be part of our initial bundle and our initial render. Well, they could be part of our initial render, but they probably don't need to be part of our initial bundle. Um, so like we'll have to explore our chunks and see if we can break our chunks apart a bit better. Um, like these chunks aren't that bad. Like this third, like 127K for the main chunk. I am curious about this 143K chunk here. Our styles are ridiculously small, right? Like 66 bytes for our Sudoku game. I expect this to grow as we work themes into it. Um, and this chunk, like these two chunks, I'm curious about what's in them. We'll come back to this um, because this is something that I think is important to know. Um, like, how do you explore these chunk sizes? And what can we do with them, right? Um, so we'll definitely come back and take a look at these chunks. Will we? Let's see what's in these chunks. I'm very, very curious. Um, so what we can do is we can do pnpm exec nx build, and we can add stats-json to it, right? And what this is going to do is it's going to add a stats.json to our our dist folder. Once we've got the stats.json, oh wait, no, this is what we expected. So now we can go into our dist folder. And in our dist folder, we can go into our apps. And then our Angular Sudoku. And here, we can see our stats.json, right? And pnpm, here, I think it's pnpx, es build visualizer. And I think we can just do stats.json. Pnpm exec, yes, build visualizer. Yeah. Oh, we don't need, we can just run it with npx. npx es build visualizer. And we can do stats.json. We don't have to use pnpm for this. And what it's doing is it's going through the stats.json and it's going to build an HTML file for us. Yeah, it's okay. You're okay to proceed. Oh, metadata. We need dash dash metadata. Oh, and I could add the dash dash open. But if we look here, we can see that it created the stats.html. And so if we go and yeah, we'll grab this here. And then we'll put our stats.html into our browser. We'll drop this over here. Okay. This is pretty small. Let me see. I mean, it's going to be pretty small for the most part, but right, the important part is how do we read this, right? And that is very strange. So what we can do is we can go back to this output, right? We're looking for the chunk P3Q or DQAJZ6, right? This is the chunk that I was really curious about, like what's in it. And we'll go a little bit bigger, but at 200, it's causing that weird flashing issue. So we'll go 150, right? So at 150, we can see that this chunk is 46% of our bundle, right? It's RxJS is taking up 5% of this. Angular core. Oh, Interesting. So it is Angular core. Um, oh, come on. Can I not get, there we go. So we can see, oh, when I move this, it's causing issues. Um, but we can see that main TS is importing Angular core. Um, you can see that the platform, the app component is importing Angular core, app config, common, router. So Angular is the biggest piece of this chunk, right? We're not going to be able to do anything with this chunk. And we've also got the signals that comes from Angular core. So within the Angular core package, we're importing both signals and Angular core. Um, and we can see, right, like this package, it's unlikely that we'll be able to shrink it um, for this bundle. So our main bundle, we'll take a look at that because it's our next biggest bundle, and see what's in our main bundle. So this is our main bundle, and our main bundle also includes signals, right? Um, but it's include. This is the signal store. So this is the NGRX signals. Um, we're also including um, mutative, right, for to prevent mutations here. So signals takes up 11, mutative takes up a bit, and then we've got the router. Um, are we using the router at all? Um, oh, we've got Ramda in here too. I thought we'd removed Ramda, right? So we could get rid of Ramda, clean up Ramda. Um, yeah, like these Ramda files here are taking up 11K. We can shrink this for sure. And then um, we've got the app, and then in libs, we're also got a whole bunch of stuff coming in, right? We've got the grid and our stores and stuff. We can probably lazy load our grid, which would take a bunch of this stuff out. Um, and then this chunk here is our forms and then our domains library, right? And then the rest of our chunks are just really small pieces, right? I'm curious if we lazy load our grid, what happens? Um, like, can we break this chunk apart? Because the goal here, so the initial total, these are the pieces that are going to be written to the they're written in the main file, and we can see that, right? If we go um, we go into WebStorm and we look at our dist folder and we look at the index.html, we'll see that these chunks are written. So the problem with that is that when we encounter these chunks, it has to pause, um, and it has to um, parse that HTML, right? So if we go here to our project and we go into our dist, apps, browser, and we look at our index.html, um, we'll see that, right, we've got these chunks. So these are the main chunks that it's rendering, and they're the chunks that are listed in the initial, right? Um, so can we make these chunks smaller? Um, or can we break them up a little bit? One thing we could do um, is we could go into Angular Sudoku. We could experiment with lazy loading the grid, right? So app component here, we've got a couple of things. So the easiest way to experiment with this is we could defer these, right? We could just say, hey, defer loading my Sudoku button host. Whoops. And the other thing we could do, and I'm not sure why my prettier isn't running on HTML. We'll have to take a look at that. We can at defer our grid. Um, can I run prettier here? Yeah. Let's see what prettier is set up, right? It's on. Um, so it is set up to run on TS files. I'm not sure why it wasn't running. Anyway, so we've deferred our packages, right? So let's run this again. Let's come down here and we'll run this again. Oh no, that's not what we wanted. Let's npm exec, and here we want to just run nx build with our stats JSON. This is definitely not where I expected to go today, but sometimes you just get that itch and you're like, why is this, why is this the way it is? And sometimes the fix can be really simple. Well, guess what? Defer didn't do anything for us, right? If we take a look here, well, that's interesting. Windows Shift S. No. What's going on with my screenshots? Yeah, Windows Shift S. Windows Shift S. Something's broken that something's broken that. Interesting. Okay, so here is the way it was before. And after adding those in, we can see that things haven't changed at all. So my defer isn't working. That's strange. Because this defer should be making things lazy loaded. Um, let's go take a look at the deferred documentation. Um, oh, I dropped that in on top of this. So defer right here. Um, See, this one's saying when the browser reports an idle state, which is what we want. We'll try on immediate, right? Um, so let's just defer on immediate. Um, and this one, we'll just try defer on idle. And let's see if that changes anything with our build. Um, so we're building this, and we can see is the next thing we could do is something that we did on Thursday, where we just lazy load it ourselves. But this is this is crazy. This is very crazy, and I don't know why Windows Shift S. It's so weird. Something is definitely interfering with that. Hey Ole, hope you're good. I was updating Tailwind 4. It worked, but it's not easy when yeah. Um, Tailwind 4 has some issues with Angular from the reading that I was doing. IntelliSense not working for libs. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even encounter that yet. Um, yeah, Tailwind 4 and Daisy 5 took a little bit of figuring out on Thursday. I'm glad you were able to figure it out, Ole, um, to be honest. Um, but this is bothering me. That my defers aren't even working. Um, well, there's a way to test this out, right? What we could do is we could just go pnpm exec nx serve, right? And this is going to serve our Sudoku game. And then what we can do is we can look at the network tab and see if, yeah, I'm glad I inspired you. That's cool. Um, so um, here we go. So here's our grid. Let's turn this on. We get at least, something that's not going to blind you guys. Um, and let's take a look at our network tab. And let's refresh this and just see. Um, so we get the client. which is our hot modules, the HMR stuff, right? These are our styles. Um, our polyfills, our main, our environment. So here's Angular core. Here's our log observable RxJS, NGRX, mutative Ramda. And then we're getting this chunk immediately. Right? We're getting this chunk immediately, this chunk, this chunk, this chunk, and this chunk, right? Like if we, how do I close it? There we go. So if we look at the waterfall, we can see these chunks are part of the initial get. And then, we start getting into the lazy loaded. So like the pencil marks and the cell components. Wait, here's the grid. So we are requesting those later. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Hmm. But one thing we can do is we can go into our index.h. No, is that our app component? Where are we including the router? Because we aren't using the router here at all. And so main.ts. I'm very curious where we're grabbing the router from. Right here, provide router, and we've got view transitions. Oh, well, we can take this out, right? We don't need that. Um, so one thing that's going to do for us is it immediately shrinks our bundle size. Um, we're not using the router at all. So we can say, hey, nx build stats JSON. Um, and let's see like what our bundles look like without the router in place. And that's going to shrink one of the main bundles. Um, so we can see we shrunk our main bundle by quite a bit. Um, right? We took 60K out of our main bundle. And it also took 9K out of this bundle. So by just removing router, which we're not using, we were able to take our bundles, like our initial bundle down to 230K um, from 308, right? So we were able to remove 70K, um, right? Back of the napkin math, right? Um, the other thing that was in our stats, right? If we go um, and we run our stats JSON again, right? And grab our HTML, get a new tab. So now we've got our core here. This is our RxJS, but in one of these we had Ramda. Um, so this is our signals and our core. Um, this is tslib. This is RxJS. So we're good here. Here we've got this is NGRX signals. This is Ramda, right? So we could figure out where we're using Ramda and remove that. That will shrink our stuff quite a bit too. Platform browser. Um, but like, where is my grid? So here's the grid. It's coming in on this main, even though we're lazy loading it. Um, these are our pipes, our cell component, our oh, grid components there, but wait, what's going on here? Grid component. We lazy load the styles for the grid. That's hilarious. But the grid itself, so here's the button host and here's the grid. And I was trying to lazy load these and get them out of the main bundle. Um, but we can look and we can see like here, this grid component, index.ts. Libs component source index.ts. So libs components. Oh, 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 oh. Oh. So here within this, we've got all of our stuff. And this is a weakness of this is a weakness of ES build. Um, we've got our grid component here and our button host component here. So because they're referenced in the same libs, we have an issue. What we could do instead, because what happens with ES build is as soon as it encounters something that it sees as a side effect, it bails. And so it doesn't do deeper analysis. One of the things that Webpack did really good was it did deeper analysis. And so it would allow things to lazy load. ES build doesn't do that. Um, and so if we go take a look, these two must have some kind of there must be a side effect here. Um, so we're getting both the grid store and the grid components. One thing we could do is we could take this stuff here out, right? Um, and then we could go over to our components, um, and inside of grid, um, we could add a new TypeScript file. This index.ts, and this is where barrel files can cause issues, right? So here, this is going to come from /grid, right? No, it's just going to come from component grid, and this is going to come from grid cell select pipe. So there we go. So we've broken our application though by doing this. So when we go take a look at the places where we use these, we're going to need to make a couple of changes. The first thing we're going to have to do is we need to go into our prettier style int decorate. It's our tsconfig base. Where's my, there it is, tsconfig base. And inside of here, we've got components, right? Domain and things like that. But what we want to add is @sud/components /grid. And this will come from, yeah, that. And so now if we go take a, well, we can actually speed this up a bit by just running the build. It's going to fail. Hey, Marcus, you're back to summertime. Oh, that's right. You guys, oh, doing away with daylight saving time would be amazing. Um, there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the biggest ones is health concerns. So the app component, we need to fix where that comes from. Um, so the app component and the grid store. So here we can say, but sorry, I got distracted by the code, which is probably what I should be distracted from. But there's a higher incidence of heart attacks around daylight savings time, which is crazy. And it's not going to recognize this. So here we can, yeah. Why is it not recognizing that import? My tsconfig base, libs component source grid. So let's just, instead of accepting, so lib/components/source/grid index.ts. Is that not, where is, so this is libs component source lib grid. We're missing the lib grid. This should fix. There we go. But yeah, I really wish we would do away with daylight saving time, um, so that we aren't, you know, quite so off all the time. Is the way of me saying I don't know what to say, but no, like just constantly swapping and flip-flopping time zones. Um, right? There's a people have, a bunch of theories about why it happened. It has nothing to do with the farmers, I'll tell you that. Farmers don't care. Um, so here we go. Now we can see that, hey, um, we're getting much more of our chunks down here. Um, so we can see that our chunks are starting to break up, right? And they're becoming smaller, um, and easier to understand. Um, but we're still getting some stuff in that main chunk. Um, so if we go ahead and we run our stats, our ES build visualizer again, and we take a look at our chunks, and this is there's an art to this. There's um, there's a bunch that goes on here, right? Understanding how this works. But notice our main chunk is now at 130. We've got Angular core in here, which we expect, but ESLibs here. This is RxJS. We've got our signals. We've still got Ramda. We'll figure out Ramda. We'll get rid of that. But notice now that our component source lib grid is pulling in the store, and it's pulling in one of our solvers, right? If we can get this store out of here, um, this chunk will be entirely lazily loaded, right? So 4C6Q, if we take a look over here at our build, wait, where is 4C6Q? Right here. So if we could get this entire chunk out of the main pipeline, that would bring us down under 180K, right? Um, we've already taken our button out of the main. Well, maybe. What is this chunk here? This is the cell component. Um, so is this 5M chunk? That's part of the main. So even though we're lazy loading the grid now, the cell is part of the main. What is this chunk? This includes platform browser. Um, so this main includes app, and we're not going to be able to get rid of app. Let's zoom in on this so we can see it, right? So platform browser is part of this. This is our app. We've got this tiny little main.ts here. Oh, this is our app config. This is our app component. Here, this is environments, and this is main.ts. So this bundle makes sense to be together, but we're also grabbing the button host component here. We don't need the button host, and the reason that the button host is here is that it's referred to by the bundle file, right? Um, so if we can get that bundle file out of here, um, we can fix that up too, right? So we can go back to here and this button host component. Actually, you know what? Well, we can move this already to our grid store, right? So there we go. So there's our grid store. Um, and there we go. So that fixes that up. So um, actually, that's probably a big enough change. Um, because it's going to stop the index.ts from being loaded in the initial bundle, I believe. Um, Actually, we don't want to do that. We want to build this with our stats JSON, and then we want the bundle. Um, we do the same. It is just that we do it later in March, so it's an annoying mismatch for a couple of weeks. Oh man, yeah. There was a bill to help solve this that wasn't signed, and I don't want to get into like government stuff too much, but um, it was disappointing. So the cell component, this is a crazy thing, right? As we can see the cell component here and the pencil and the host. Um, but we've moved our chunks around quite a bit. Um, and we've managed to move like this was 300K, right? Or not K, this was 300 bytes before. Um, Now, right, we're approaching 4K, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but we managed to take this from over 300 to down to 220. Um, and this is the what am I stats.json not exist? Oh, I didn't run it. I need to run the ESBuild visualizer, and then we can take a look at our stats and see where things are. I think what I just did is going to, so now like our biggest one here um, is now our Angular, like our Angular components, right? Our TSLib and then RxJS. This hasn't really changed. Um, our main, if we look at this again, our app component, and then now our button host is the only thing here. Um, so we can take button host out of here by doing similar things. Um, it's crazy. Well, let's give it its own library, right? And this is the potential issue with barrel files, right? It's not 100% guaranteed, but side effects and things enter into things here, and you may not know what it's considering a side effect, right? So there's my grid buttons. So here in buttons, we'll just grab a new TypeScript file. This is our index.ts. Um, and there we go. We take out libs buttons. There we go. And then we need to go into our tsconfig.json, base.json. And inside of here, we can components slash buttons, right? This goes lib component source lib slash buttons index.ts. And then in our app component here, um, well, our grid store needs to come from here now. And our button. There we go. So that fixes that up. And we can build this again and see if we can get our bundles a little bit more lazy. And this, so barrel files are very useful. Um, However, barrel files can have unintended consequences. One of the crazy things that I've seen happen is, say you include test files in your barrel files. Um, it's possible that your test files could be included in your packages. Um, so look at that. By making that buttons change and moving the store, notice now that our main bundle size has dropped below 200K. We were able to move like 24K into our cell component bundle, um, which is fine. The grid and the cell components are probably going to be loaded in the same, right? But this is code that's not sent to the browser, which means the browser doesn't have to download it on the initial download. It's also code that's not put in the index.html, so the browser doesn't have to stop and parse this code. Um, and we did it by doing our lazy loading. We probably don't even need this stuff in the defer anymore. Um, right. So if we go and we rebuild this, the defer should be just the way, just the way, right? It's the default defer. It's the on idle, um, which means as soon as the browser reports that it's idle, we're going to download those. Um, we'll be able to take a look at this in the networking tab. So there we go. If we take a look, yeah, we've still got the same, right? So it didn't have anything to do with the defer. It had everything to do with um, how we were handling um, our barrel files, right? And we could even break this up smaller by changing the cell component and stuff like that. I'm not that concerned, um, but we've been able to shrink this by quite a bit um, by just thinking about our bundling and experimenting, right? And this is definitely not the direction that I expected the stream to go today. And my daughter is coming home from a trip for her drill team, so I've got to be cognizant of time. Um, but if we go back and we take a look at this, now if we take a look, this is all node modules. It's the Angular core stuff, right? It's our signals and our core. We've got tslib and rxjs. Great. This is what we expect to be here. Our main bundle has the grid component back in it. Um, and the reason for this is that the grid component and the grid store are here. And in our providers, we're providing the grid store. Um, and so since these are referenced um, from the same bundle, they get brought in together. Um, I mean, we could take a look at like lazy inject and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, this is stuff loaded on the initial landing page. It accounts for 2K. I'm I'm less concerned about that, right? Our main bundle is no longer one of our biggest bundles. It's now one of our smallest bundles um, in the main render, right? If we take a look at the build here, main doesn't even account for a large portion of this, right? Um, we do have like this chunk P27P. And let's take a look at chunk P27P. So that's where the store is. That's interesting. Um, we've got our solvers and stuff like that, but this grid store actually got its own chunk. Um, this is interesting. But the biggest chunk here is mutative, right? Which is part of the errors feature, which is part of the store. Um, and then we've got our NGRX signals and we've got our Ramda. If we can take Ramda out of here, we'll shrink this chunk also. And we're not using Ramda that I'm aware of. I thought we'd removed it, but maybe we still are. Um, we'll figure out where we're using Ramda in here. We are using signals because we're using signal stores. Um, but one thing we could do, um, to help a bit with this is we could go back this grid index and we could take this from here and we could go into our grid store. We could add a new TS file. And this is our index.ts. And from here, we can export our grid store, right? And then we need to go to our tsconfig base and we'll copy this and we can add our store in here, libs component lib grid store. I believe that's where that is, right? Um, yeah, grid store. So we've added that in, and now we need to go back to our app component, and our grid store no longer comes from here. We can import grid store from there. Perfect. So that moves the grid store. So the next thing we can take a look at is Ramda. Um, so our pencil marks are using Ramda. This is not the one we wanted. Oh, look at this. We've even got the, hey, convert this back to a for loop and remove Ramda. Um, um, here's the pencil mark feature right here. Um, get cell values to hide. So what we can do is we can say for const cell of row right? This is our for loop, for of. Um, we can say if cell dot value does not equal null, right? Well, we can do the undefined. We don't want the triple equals. We want this one. We want a coercive. So if cell is not null, and we can even add that in. Now we can say um, let's use a reducer here. A reducer is probably the right way to go. Um, we can just say return row, and this is doing a filter and a map, and that's um, we'll do a row dot reduce, and here this will be unique values, and this will be our cell, right? And here we're just going to start with an empty array. And this is kind of ugly and not what we want. Um, the unique values is going to be pretty small, so I'm fine with an on squared here. So we can say if, yeah, there we go. So unique values, why doesn't it like includes on cell state? Row is a cell state array. Unique values. We want the coercive check here. So unique values needs to be I'm going to comment this out. And it's saying that it return cell state is missing the following properties. We're pushing. Why does it think unique values is a cell state? So there's our, oh, there we go. And then here it's saying assignable to type never, right? Because now it thinks that this array is type never. But we can just say as cell value array. And this is one of the places where casting makes sense. And the reason for this is that TypeScript won't infer the type because the array type could change in the reduce. Um, so it's one of the places where we just have to say, hey, this is the way it is. This is ON squared, right? Because the reduce is one loop, right? And then the unique values dot includes is another loop. Um, however, the like one row is is nine, right? And the maximum number of unique values is nine. So it's like 81 times through the loop is the max value. We could take a look at different ways of doing this, right? We could use maps or whatever, um, and bring that complexity down. But we would bring that complexity down at the cost of memory or some other trade-off. And for 81 compares, I'm okay um, with an ON squared, right? It's not going to be that bad for the amount of trade-off and or for what we're doing, and the trade-offs may not be better, right? um, Best case scenario, the trade-offs are probably better. Well, no, best case scenario is like, say it's all ones. Our array of one, right, is going to be smaller than a hash map or whatever else of one, and we don't have to calculate that key every time. And there's a whole bunch of things that we don't have to do every time for that O1 lookup, right? For 81, right? Like the number of extra calculations and stuff may be more than our ON squared, right? And I can't say that with certainty, but what I can say is that for 81 potential worst case scenario, I'm okay with that, right? Um, and best case scenario is everything's undefined, and we don't do anything. Um, but um, that removes Ramda, I believe. Um, yeah. So now the only place that Ramda is referred to is in the package.json, and we can just do pnpm remove Ramda. Um, right, so we've taken out a library. Like Ramda has an interesting um, it's interesting, right? Because what we did is that lookup was not ON squared for the Ramda code, because we could write the code in such a way that the pipe would go through and check uniqueness and all of that stuff, right? So we didn't have to do a lot of that stuff. The downside was we were bringing in like 18K. 18K in the scheme of things is probably not that big of a deal, right? Especially in much larger applications. Um, but 18K for what we're doing here, where we're good with an ON squared, um, was expensive, right? Um, so now we should be able to build our application and then run our package, and our initial package should get smaller. And that's like, again, this wasn't what I expected to do coming into the stream, but I don't know. There's just something that always bothers me when I don't know why my packages are so big, right? Um, so here we go. Now we're down to 180K sent to the browser. That it has to stop and worry about. Like this 134K is Angular. We could do stuff to potentially make this smaller, um, but I'm not that interested in minimizing Angular. Like we could write our own bootstrapping function that lazy loads Angular. Um, and it could push all of this 134K down into this chunk, right? But did we really accomplish anything? Because our application doesn't do anything until Angular's lazy loaded. Um, so, then we have to think about, do we do loading screens? And then it seems really weird to do loading, right? So at this point, we're going to accept this one. So the next ones are these two chunks here, right? Like 43K. And can we make this 43K smaller? We managed to shrink this main package, right? And we managed to shrink this package. Like if we go take a look up here, this was 42K and this was 16K. And now we're down to 30K and 13K, right? So we managed to shrink these two packages. Some of that was probably taken up other places, right? Because notice now these are in the kilobytes, where before, no, they were in the kilobytes before. So 2756, 240, 227, 2756, 240, 227. We managed to move. Oh, this is the grid. We managed to move the entire grid into the lazy section, right? Um, so that's good. Um, so we took the grid out of here, right? It's 3K, but it's 3K we don't send to the browser initially. It's 3K that they don't have to parse. Um, right? And if we rerun this, we can see, where is where is the size for these bundles coming from? And like this is stuff you could take a week doing, right? But notice our biggest bundle is always going to be our Angular core, right? And RxJS. And this is served as one chunk by itself. That's fine, right? This next chunk um, happens to be mutative and our NGRX signals, and it's our store, right? But that's all this chunk is. We could make this chunk lazy loaded, right? Um, there is, like if we go, we can lazy inject Angular, right? And I believe, well, right away, we've got the king of Angular, right? Writing an article, but we've also got this inject lazy, right? Um, so, right, we've got Nathaniel Basel writing about how you can do a lazy service import, um, which is pretty cool. And we could do that. We could also go to ng extension, right? And we could use inject lazy, um, right? Um, so to use it, um, we can just do an import. So we set up the import, right? And then in our component, we can do an inject lazy on data service. And since it's not referred to anywhere here, um, interesting. Very interesting. We've got 10 minutes. Should we see what inject lazy does for us? Let's see what we can do. Um, this is definitely not where I plan to go today, but so we're gonna add in ng extension, and then once we add ng extension, we're going to run the generator for it. Why is it saying my lock file is? So we removed Ramda. Um, Try again. Uh, with ng extension, we're going to use the inject lazy. Yeah. Let's try no frozen lock file. Frozen lock file. What is the command for the no frozen lock file? Unknown option. Frozen dash lock file. Maybe it's this? No frozen. npm add ng extension. Right, we can add it and then so here, if I go take a look, did we get I sure hope I know what I'm doing too, because I'm getting a whole bunch of weird stuff here. Um, yes, let's terminate that batch job. See what I did. Ng add, npm install, ng extension. Let's see what I did to my package.json. Nothing. What did I do to my pnpm lock? Really nothing. Um, so I'm really curious, like when I paste this, right? Um, it's resolving all the packages, but it's giving me this weird, oh, there we go. So whatever had that file locked is now no longer locked. Great. So now we've got our ng extension in place. Now we can go grab the generator for NX, right? Um, so go here and pnpm exec, and there we go. And so now we're going to lazy, oh, something get messed up. My force mess up a whole bunch of other things. Project graph. Pnpm exec nx. Um, let's just serve. I made a mess. I made a mess. And now that mess is coming to bite me. One thing we could do is we could do our pnpm install no frozen lock file and see already up to date. Because it's telling us that it can't find TypeScript ESLint utils. Um, and now it's telling me that my NX workspace is gone. Uh, let's let's do this. So let's go here. And let's go back a few directories. And let's rename pnpm lock.yaml to npm lock.yaml.old. There we go. And now let's pnpm install. Because I think I messed up my node modules doing what I was doing. Um, so now if I run my pnpm nx or exec nx build, does this work? Rename node modules to node modules.old. Yeah, you can't access that because I've got a whole bunch of stuff. And that force really made a mess, huh? Like if I go take a look here at my node modules directory, so there's like at nx and there's workspace and all of that. Um, but it's complaining about TypeScript ESLint utils. Let's see if we have TypeScript ESLint utils. TypeScript ESLint, there it is right there. It's right there. Let's shut some stuff down. And let's run our rename. That worked. And so now my pnpm install should go grab everything. And then we'll figure out how to use inject lazy. Let's see what Get Kraken thinks about what we've done so far. Okay, so in better, we are going to ignore this, and we're going to go edit our is the top git ignore. So we're just going to ignore all of this. Um, that's going to take all of that stuff out. Um, so we've got that in place. We got our app config where we removed the router. We've updated our barrel files significantly. We removed Ramda, our package JSON. We've added our ng extensions. PNPM lock, we've added that. This we can just delete. Um, then our TS config base. So now if we just run our npm exec nx build, something keeps locking my file system. I have a suspicion. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Till I restart the system. It's annoying that these lock files are causing so many problems. WSL moment. I have the same issue, except I'm not using WSL. Um, it's not able to create these sim links, which is frustrating. There we go. So now I should be able to. It's the symlink problem, and like maybe it's my antivirus, but I doubt it. Like I haven't had this problem before. There we go. So we'll just re-enable that. Um, so that's all working now. So I don't know what is causing the symlink issues. Um, so let's go back to our app components. See, I can't lazy load this. So that's not going to work. Um, like inject lazy works, except the I want to break. is there a provider? Um, that search is weird. See, the issue, like inject lazy would be helpful, except our providers, like we want, does it have to be here? I don't want to break this too much. So inject lazy is a good idea, and I'm going to leave ng extensions in place because I do want to introduce some ng extensions anyway. But it's the component level provider basically creates a hard link between this component and the provider. Um, and the problem we have here is like lazy features, right, with the signal store. Um, but I don't know. I think we're fine here. Um, if we take a look at we take a look at our NX build now that we've done this, we've definitely shrunk our packages, um, which is not something that should be taken out of context. Um, there's my South Park brain for you. Um, but yeah, we've improved like when we first started this. If we go up, all the serve stuff, chunks. I think there's yeah, we can jump up with the up arrow. This is another nice thing about warp. So this is an improved one. That's another improved one. So 308K was our original serve, right? So we were originally serving 308K, and I uh, I don't know why my shortcut keys aren't working. I'll have to take a look at that. So we were originally serving 308K in our initial bundle. Um, we've brought that down to, we'll say like 60%, right? Yeah, right around 60%. Um, so, we've created a 40% improvement over where we started. Um, and that's going to show up in a lot of other places. So the last thing we can do is we can just do pnpm exec. Well, actually, I want to take a look really quick. Um, let's take a look at our stats JSON and just see what our packages are. And then I want to see when we serve this. Yeah, the heyo on my South Park joke, right? So pnpm exec nx serve. So while we bring that up, we'll also take a look here. Um, and so like this is the grid store. So this chunk in and of itself accounts for the store, which has all the different features, right? So this is the pencil marks feature. So all of our different features. And actually, I expect this to shrink as we get into our provider, not our provider, our resource. So I think our resource will help quite a bit with this. Um, and we can potentially lazy load resources, um, right? Like, I don't know. Sometimes you can become obsessed with bundle sizes, and I do that for a bit. But like our cell component is in with our Angular forms, that makes sense. And log observable, we're probably doing something when our cell component changes that we're using log observable. So these chunks are fine. And let's be honest, this chunk is 500 or is 5K. This chunk is 11K. Why is this one? Oh no, this is 26K because we have Angular forms as part of it. Um, this is our main chunk. Um, and our main chunk is now just the app component and the platform browser, right? So one of the things we were able to do, and this is helpful, is we were able to take everything um, out into other chunks. So like even though this refers to um, our our grid store, right? Our grid store got its own chunk, which moved some stuff here, and allows parallel downloading, right? The browser won't do parallel processing of JS files, but it will do parallel downloading, and we can see that in the waterfall when we take a look at it. And then this is the chunk for our grid, and it's just the grid by itself. Um, but if we take a look, um, we go down to the bottom. And we take a look. So the GFH SAGI, where's GFH? Oh, I'm hiding it. So this is our GFH chunk. That's the Angular chunk, right? We could do stuff to shrink this, but I don't know that it's worth it. Our next biggest chunk is the store, but that's because it includes mutative, which is 18K by itself. And um, it also includes NGRX, so like the signal store is in here. Um, so that accounts for 20K, right, of this 30K. So 18K of this is our store. No, I can do math, I promise, guys. Um, this accounts for, um, like, we'll call this 19 and we'll call this 3. So this accounts for like 23K. So 7K is, well, maybe you don't have to do math if you just look, right? 8K, 8.02K, which is accounted for by our analyzer and our store. Um, so, right, so this chunk used to be here, now it's here, which means these can all be downloaded in parallel. Our main chunk is here, it's 13K, and that's because it includes the platform browser stuff in it, right? Um, this 7JW, I don't even know what it is, but it's or no OAV. OAV. Which one is OAV? I don't know. It's one of these small ones on the side, but it's small enough. Like I don't care about these ones. Um, and then we were able to move a whole bunch down here, right? Where in the beginning we were only serving 300 bytes lazy loaded. Now we're well above that, right? So we've got 31. We'll call this plus another 5, 36, 36K that we're serving from here. That used to be up inside of here, right? So this would be 216. Um, if if we hadn't made the changes that we did. Um, so the question is, were the changes worth it, right? Like, did we break our application? And that's where we can come to our application itself. And let's bring up our network, right? And we'll disable the cache. And you know what? Let's just say that, hey, um, we've got a 2G phone and we want to load this. Let's see. It's relatively fast. No, it's not. With 2G throttling, um, we're we're struggling here, right? And part of that is that it's having to parse all of this stuff. Um, so like this 1.86K or 186K of our main JS is taking 12 seconds, right? So on a 2G, our game is unplayable. Um, on 3G, we'll refresh and see how we go. Um, our waterfall's looking a little bit better, but we're still very slow to load. Like we've barely gotten like mutative on a 3G connection costs us 4 seconds, right? So one of the problems we have is that because we lazy loaded everything, things are taking a long time to pop in, right? Because we don't even see like there's the buttons, these buttons here, um, and pencil marks, cell app. This is our grid, right? It's loaded in the same time. These take almost no time, but we've got all of these heavy chunks that we were talking about, right? That are expensive on like a 3G. Um, at 4G, um, we're still a bit slow, um, right? It takes our DOM loads in 84 milliseconds, but it takes nearly 4 seconds. We're transferring 2.3 megabytes. Holy crap. Um, if we just do no throttling, right? Um, it looks almost instant, but um, that's because we don't have any network latency or overhead, right? Um, and these things transfer very, very quickly. Um, but even then, we get pop in. We're still serving 2.31 megabytes. That's crazy. That's very crazy. Um, let's right. Let's say that we don't have caching disabled. With caching in place, um, our 2G is still a bit slow. But a lot of this stuff is coming in 0 milliseconds. Um, but we're seeing the waterfall here, right? Um, so the browser can only request a certain number of things. So we're getting this is the initial bundle request. We're getting some more stuff. We're getting some lazy requests, and we're getting some more lazy requests and some more lazy requests. Um, but it 2G, we're still well, this isn't a fair test. I'll tell you that right now because I just realized we're using WebSockets and hot module reloading. Um, so um, we would need to get it on an actual server, right? Um, but it takes over a second to get to the page. Um, 2.31 megabytes. Where is that coming from? Oh, um, this is the non-production build. The stuff we're looking at here is a production build. Um, so one thing we could do um, is we could go pnpm exec nx build and here we could do development and I think we can do um, stats dash JSON here. And that should run our development environment build, and that's where let's try um I always forget how to run like so version configuration output exclude graph nxbail. Because we could do pnpm exec nx run. We could do build angular dash sudoku development stats dash JSON. I think I've got my build in the wrong place. No. It'll show us the command that it's running when we do the build here. I really got to end. I'm half hour over. Need to go get ready. But anyway, the difference in size is 2.31 is the non-minified. enpm exec nx build stats dash json. What did I run? That's what I ran. Why is it giving me something is going on with my system? There's something really weird going on here. Because I'm getting an IO error from NX. It has to do with the cloud. Very fascinating. Um, so does my serve work? That's what I want. Yeah, that one's working. So pnpm exec angular dash sudoku build development. I've done something. We need to end. I've got to end. Um, but very, very fascinating that I can't. Um, Angular Sudoku build is not found. Very fascinated by now, right? Like I'm getting the IO error. Yeah. I need to end this stream here. I'm gonna have to fix this and figure out what's going on. Thank you guys for just hanging out while we looked at bundle sizes and improved the performance of our application through bundle sizes. We'll see you guys.